Okay, should we make a start? Neil, if you can share the slides, that would be great. And Rang, I'll leave it to you to kick off.
Absolutely. You can step onto the next one, Neil. So first of all, good to have you here. I'll make a very brief introduction, and what we'll do is hand over to Neil, who is our instructor, and he will take you through the planned content of today. Neil is having a bit of technical issues, which is why we cannot see him. We can see his illustration of his sailboat instead, which is fitting. So who we are here, we are Neil, who is the instructor, and will be taking us through the course. Neil is, well, you could introduce yourself as well, but he has decades of sailing instructor experience. Spent lots of time on the water and made this his profession, so we're happy to have him with us. Myself, I'm Ragnvald. I'm a sailor. I have been an active regatta sailor, but currently mostly cruising and repairing, obviously, as one does when one owns a boat. And then we have Jonathan with us, who is helping out organizing this and business development activities. Okay, move on, Neil. So I'll just say briefly on who we are and what we're trying to do in building Sailmaster Academy. So we kicked this off last year, and kind of why we're here is recognizing that owning and operating a boat really requires a multidisciplinary skill set. You need to know not only how to use the boat, you usually need to know how to maintain it, how to repair it. And we want to cover kind of all of these aspects: how to become a better sailor, how to become a faster, cheaper repairer, and how to become a safer sailor, also by knowing how to do stuff on your own around the boats, either on water or at the dock. So you'll see in the outline that we have courses relating to maintenance. One of our currently finalized courses is within marine diesel maintenance. And at the other end of the scale, which is what we're launching today here, is the Keelboat Racing. So with that, I think we'll dive into the meat of today. Jonathan, you can talk us through a little bit of the outline of the webinar, and then Neil will take over for the content.
Great, thank you, Rang. So I guess there are 4 core elements to our session this afternoon. Neil will begin by giving you an overview of the new Keelboat Racing course that Rang has just mentioned, and talk you through that and what makes it such a unique proposition in the world of online sailing education. Of course, it's particularly timely that we're doing this webinar and launching this course, given that there are a new set of racing rules of sailing. So Neil has prepared a detailed update for you on the changes and what is different in the 2025 to 2028 update. So he will talk through that. As I mentioned, if you've got any burning questions, you can't hear us, you can't see the slides, do drop a note in the chat and we can happily address them. But other than that, Neil will be happy to take any questions after his presentation. And we've obviously said through our marketing activity that we will give a number of complimentary courses to the winners. So we will then make plans to effect that at the end of the session. But we should be done as planned within the hour. So 6 o'clock Central European time, or wherever the equivalent is for you. So Neil, over to you, and kick off with a course overview. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for joining, everyone. It's great to see you here. Starting off with a course overview, we've put together a course based on loads of experience and questions and ideas from various people. And the outline of the course is as per the screen. Starting to race would cover the different types of racing, whether it's one design racing or handicap racing. Race preparation and practice are all the things that you need to do to prepare yourself, your boat, your crew. Race control is very much about the race committee and the documents that you need to be aware of and understand before you go racing. Then staying out of trouble on the race course covers what you would need to do on the actual race course. So assuming you're doing around the cans racing on a windward-leeward course, the things that you would need to focus on the upwind leg, things you would need to focus on rounding the windward mark, the downwind leg, rounding the leeward mark, and then finishing. And then we've got a module specifically about rounding racing marks, which is self-explanatory. The next module is winning the start. Obviously, if you get a good start, it's a lot easier to control the race than having not such a good start and having to play catch-up. Then the various roles of the crew members. And here we've looked at different size boats. Obviously, the bigger boats need more crew. Smaller boats, less crew. So we've looked at both larger boats and smaller boats. Boat handling, what we need to do to ensure that the boat sails well on the course. Sail trim, specifically information about spinnakers, asymmetrical spinnakers and symmetrical spinnakers. A little bit of information about offshore racing and what you need to be aware of there. And then we end off with a module on safety, which goes through the various bits and pieces that you need to carry, your man overboards, helicopter rescues. God willing, none of us need that, but it is there just in case you do. Moving on to the next slide. And this is the update to the Racing Rules of Sailing 2025 to 2028. And this is the meat of what we're going to be talking about tonight. And in this session, we'll focus on rules that have changed since 2021 to 2024 update. We are going to ignore changes that do not affect the way you sail on the race course. So there's a number of changes that are typos and spelling errors and grammatical errors and things like that, which we're not really going to focus on. Time is too short. We're going to focus on the major changes that would impact you. And through the presentation, you will see bits of red text, which will emphasize new rules and wording. And if I can ask that you please post your questions in the chat, and we'll answer them at the end of the session, time permitting. Okay, rules update background. The racing rules of sailing are updated every 4 years, effective on the 1st of January of the year after the Olympic Games. And these updates are done primarily to fix typos, spelling and grammar, to close loopholes and keep up with racing trends. For every rule out there, there's going to be a sailor who's looking for a loophole around that rule. That is human nature, unfortunately. So it is very important that our rule makers and rule keepers are continuously trying to close these loopholes to make racing fair for everybody and to ensure that the rules are applied as intended. Racing trends change all the time. In the last 10, 15 years, we have foiling boats, which have a new set of rules that have come with them. And the progression in technology is going to just increase at a very rapid pace as we go forward. And we expect that the new rules that come about in 2029 will start to focus a lot more on the technological changes in the sport that we all love. And then lastly, they're there to improve the sport of sailing, make it fair for everybody on the race course so that we can all have fun. So what do we expect from the 2025 to 2028 rules? There's been a lot of renumbering and rewording, which we're not really going to go into too much detail. There are one or two that we will touch on. There are two new definitions and changes to a few existing definitions, which we will cover. There are not many major changes. There are a couple, and we will certainly go through those this evening. And then part 5 of the Racing Rules of Sailing, which covers protests and redress, has been restructured and pretty much rewritten. And we'll go through the pertinent points on those. So to the nitty-gritty, the first changes apply to the N flag under race signals. And there's been two words that have been included in each of the scenarios, and that is in progress. Now, previously, there was a lot of confusion amongst racing sailors as to whether the N flag indicated that all races were abandoned, the races that they'd just finished were abandoned, the races that were still to be had were abandoned, and to remove this confusion, the rule makers have included all races in progress. So when you see the N flag, whether it's on its own, whether it's N over H or N over A, it applies only to the races in progress. No other races, no races prior, no races still to be raced, just the races in progress. Then there are two new definitions. In the rules, if you see the word committee in italics, it only refers to the Racing Rules of Sailing committees, and those are the race committee, the protest committee, and the technical committee. It doesn't refer to things like the race organizing committee or any other committee that may have been put together with a view to assisting with a particular race or regatta. The second new definition is around continuing obstruction, and here a size has been defined. In the old rules, there was no size, and the size has been defined as 3 hull lengths of the smallest boat. So wherever you see obstruction in italics in the rules, it refers to 3 hull lengths of the smallest boat in size. Those are the two definitions. There are no other new definitions, but there are some changes to existing definitions, which we'll cover now. The first changed definition is the definition of a finish. And what they've done is they've added the sentence in red at the end of the existing or the old definition, as it were. And it reads as follows: after finishing, she need not cross the finish line completely, and the sailing instructions may change the direction in which boats are required to cross the finishing line to finish. Now, the reason I think, or my understanding for the second sentence, the second new sentence about the sailing instructions, is not that they're trying to promote hook finishes, which are potentially quite dangerous, because you have people approaching the finish and people leaving the finish who've already finished in the same bit of water. But to accommodate racing in rivers, for example, racing in areas where you've got headlands that influence the race course, etc. So just bear in mind that you do need to check your SIs, your sailing instructions, as the change in direction in which boats are required to cross the finish line may be stipulated in the sailing instructions. The next definition is that of mark room, and here they've reworded it quite dramatically. Those of you who were familiar with the 2021 to 2024 mark room definition It was quite a long paragraph, difficult to read, and it has been changed and simplified to what you see on screen. And there's been an addition of C. So mark room reads as follows: A, to sail to the mark when a proper course is to sail close to it. B, to round or pass the mark on the required side. And C, to leave it astern. Now, we will go through some examples shortly where this leaving it to stern makes a lot of sense. In the old rules, people didn't really understand where the mark room ended. Most good sailors had an idea of when they needed to provide mark room, but they didn't have a clear understanding of when that mark room stopped. Now it's quite clear. To leave it astern. So here we have an example. We have a yellow and a blue boat approaching a mark. The yellow boat has an inside overlap. It rounds the mark and then jibes at position 3. And the blue boat at position 3 infringes the yellow boat and therefore breaks rule 18.2, as the yellow boat has not finished rounding the mark or left it astern when she is infringed by the blue boat. She only leaves the mark astern in the darker yellow boat. So at position 3, she has not yet left the mark astern, and therefore the mark room rule still applies. Some more changed definitions. That of proper course. That now is simply the course to sail the course as quickly as possible. Then the definition of a rule. Basic principles are not rules. So the basic principles are the principles pertaining to rendering assistance at sea, all the principles of being environmentally friendly, not throwing your rubbish overboard. Those are not rules, but are basic principles, and they do still apply. And then lastly, sail the course. They've added start and finish. So it used to just be the string rule. It's now start, string rule, finish. Hope that all makes a lot of sense to you. I think it's a lot simpler than it used to be. Then some changes to the rules itself. We're going to look at rule 14, avoiding contact. And again, they've added 2 clauses. So clause B, not cause contact between boats, and C, not cause contact between a boat and an object that should be avoided. So in the old rule, basically you had to keep clear of another boat. So you couldn't cause a collision with another boat. Whereas now, you need to be aware of your actions, in that if you lap up another boat and that other boat then causes contact with a boat that they've lapped up, you are in the wrong because you have caused contact between boats. And we'll look at an example shortly. So in the example over here, we have the yellow, blue, and green boats. The yellow boat is going slower to leeward than the blue boat and the green boat, who are about to overtake, and to defend her position, the yellow boat luffs up the blue boat, who in turn luffs up the green boat, and there is contact between the blue and the green boat. And unfortunately, yellow boat breaks rule 14, as she caused the collision between the blue and the green boats, even though she wasn't involved in the collision itself. So this is a big change to the rules, and one that is quite significant, and one that we all need to be aware of. There's a lot of ongoing discussion about this rule in the sailing forums, sail racing forums. Obviously, at the start, Previously, it was quite common to luff up the boat to windward of you. And now you need to be very careful that you don't cause them to luff up the boat to windward of them, and they then have contact. Moving on, Rule 17 covers proper course. And what they've done here is the last sentence they have removed. And the last sentence used to read, "This rule does not apply if the overlap begins while the windward boat is required by RRS 13 to keep clear." That has been completely removed out of Rule 17, proper course. So Rule 17 now reads, if a boat clear astern becomes overlapped within 2 of her hull lengths to leeward of a boat on the same tack, she shall not sail above her proper course while they remain on the same tack and overlapped within that distance, unless in doing so, she promptly sails astern of the other boat. So the rule has been simplified, and looking at an example, we see the blue boat coming in on port tack, yellow boat on starboard tack. The blue boat tacks on top of the yellow boat, and the yellow boat then luffs up the blue boat and forces them to go above above her proper course, the blue boat's proper course, and therefore the yellow boat breaks Rule 17, as she may not luff the blue boat while the blue boat is tacking. So this is a big change. Again, something that those of us who've been doing quite a bit of racing have been doing. We're no longer allowed to do this. The yellow boat needs to sail her proper course and not luff up the blue boat through the tack. The next rule we're going to look at is Rule 18.2a, which covers mark room. And here again, it's been reworded quite considerably. The old edition of the rules, 2021 to 2024, used to talk about boat clear ahead and boat clear astern. That's all been removed. And the rule reads as follows. When the first of 2 boats reaches the zone, 1, if the boats are overlapped, the outside side boat at that moment shall give the inside boat mark room. And 2, if the boats are not overlapped, the boat that has not reached the zone at that moment shall give the other boat mark room. When a boat is required to give mark room by this rule, she shall continue to do so for as long as the rule applies, even if later an overlap is broken or a new overlap begins. So the rule has been simplified quite a bit, and I think easier to understand than the old rule was. And let's have a look at an example. So over here we have 2 boats coming down on the leeward mark. The yellow boat is clear ahead, but doesn't reach the zone first. The blue boat reaches the zone first. Under the old rule, the yellow boat was entitled to mark room. Under the new rule, the blue boat is entitled to mark room because it reached the zone first. So a big change to the mark room rules, and one that we need to get used to applying because it is very different. The next one we'll look at is Rule 18.3, and here the heading has been changed to tacking in the zone. And essentially the rule itself remains very similar. If a boat passes head to wind from port to starboard tack in the zone of a mark to be left to port, Rule 18.2 does not apply. That is the same as it always was. If the other boat has been on starboard tack since entering the zone, the boat that passed head to wind shall not cause the other boat to sail above a close-hauled course to avoid contact, and shall give mark room if the other boat becomes overlapped inside her. And looking at an example where we have two boats tacking in the zone, both the yellow and blue boats have tacked in the zone, and therefore Rule 18.2 does not apply. Both boats are required to follow the basic right-of-way rules. There is no more mark room if two boats tack in the zone. Moving forward to Rule 20.1, room to tack. And here, all they've done is they've added inverted commas around the hail, room to tack. So we now need to use the exact wording, room to tack, as opposed to any other hail that we were previously allowed to use. That's the only change to that rule. Rule 40.2 covers, 40.2C at least, covers personal flotation devices. And the old rule stated that if the Y flag was displayed, either on shore or on the committee boat, that we needed to wear our PFDs, or if the sailing instructions or notice of race indicated that we needed to use PFDs, then we would need to wear those devices. The addition is C, that the class rules can now indicate that we need to use personal flotation devices. And whilst I don't really see this applying to keelboats, it may do to some of the keelboats that don't have guardrails, like boats like the Hunter 19, the very small keelboats where there are no guardrails. But I certainly see it coming into existence in class rules for the junior classes of dinghies, like the Optimus, for example, where I think it's probably be put into their class rules that they have to wear life jackets or personal flotation devices at all times. So it's important that we now go and have a look at our class rules, particularly if you're doing some dinghy sailing in addition to keelboat sailing, or if you're going to be sailing the smaller sport type keelboats. Then Rule 56.3 covers AIS and the use thereof. Obviously, this is for your offshore racing. And in the old days, boats were allowed to go into dark mode and switch off their AIS, so the competitors couldn't see where they were and what they were doing and what sort of wind they had. This is now no longer allowed. You need to keep your AIS on at all times, and I think this is a lot of common sense. AIS is there to keep us all safe, and to have people turning it off, to me, doesn't make much sense at all. So it's a welcome rule as far as I'm concerned, and it does make it fairer for everybody to be able to see all other vessels in the boat, in the competition. And then the last rule that we're going to concern ourselves with is Rule 60.3, and this covers protest contents. The old rule was quite onerous in terms of all the information that we needed to provide. The new rule says that when delivering a protest shall be in writing and identify the protestor, the protestee, and the incident. So it's a lot simpler. There's no need to stipulate where and when and at what time the incident happened, which rules you think were broken, or who the protester's representative is. That's all out the window. So going forward, if you're involved in a protest, all you need to do is ensure, number one, that it's in writing. Secondly, to identify the protestor and the protestee, and highlight what the incident was. So a lot simpler than the old process for lodging a protest. And that brings me to the end of the rules section. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Jonathan, any questions on the chat?
Thank you, Neil. That's great. I will just double check. I didn't see anything in the chat, but I guess if anybody has any questions, they can drop them in the chat, or simply just if you can obviously mute yourself for a moment and then ask any questions away. Does anybody have any questions for Neil? But thank you for that very detailed and comprehensive review, Neil. I'm not seeing anything in the chat. I guess, Neil, we have a little bit of time. We're slightly ahead of schedule. Do you think you could do a quick walk through the course in a little bit more detail? Would that be possible? If you could just
certainly.
Stop sharing your screen for a moment and just give attendees a quick overview of the type of resources that they would find within the Keelboat Racing course. That might be good for just 5 minutes before we, if there aren't any questions, then maybe we could just use time usefully just to walk through the key kind of. You've summarized already the content that's covered, but it might just be useful to highlight some of the different interactive elements and quizzes and films and GIFs and so forth that populate the learning resources.
Certainly. So the way that we put the course together is that there is some video content, there is some written content, there are interactive diagrams with hotspots that you can click on to get information on each aspect of that diagram. Each module has a quiz that you're encouraged to do at the end of the module. And on completion of the entire course, there is a certificate of completion that you can download. The modules are structured in a particular manner, although you're not forced to do the modules in that order. You can do them in whatever order that you like, although we believe that we've structured them in a way that it would be beneficial to start at the beginning and work your way through. But if there's specific information that you're looking for, let's say that you specifically want to know about sail trim, you are able to jump to that module and go through that module in detail, and at a different time come back to boat trim or any of the other modules, for example.
Neil, are you able to? Sorry to interrupt. Are you able to share your screen so we can see the board content?
I just need to pull it up.
Ah, okay.
Give me 1 sec. I'm just logging in. Okay, are you able to see the getting started page?
There we go. Now that's brilliant. Thank you.
Okay, so this is where we would start, getting started page, and we have some tips, and then the various modules that we cover. I'm going to pop into the module on race control, for example, module 4. And As you can see, if you point at the information button on each of these modules, it will tell you what to expect. We go next, starting to race. There's some information on your racing, handicap versus one design. We have some text on handicap racing, some on one design racing, some links that you can follow, racing rules and principles, and again, links to the latest set of racing rules, your offshore special regulations, principles of racing, sportsmanship, what you need to bear in mind, helping those in danger, the decision to race, and environmental responsibilities. And if we move forward, there is a short quiz at the end of that section, as there is at the end of every section. And it is a multiple choice type scenario, 1 of 4 questions, and you can page through them, drop down boxes, true or false, and you would then submit, and it would give you an indication as to how well you did. We go to race control, the different race courses. Yes, we'll leave that page. Different types of race courses, and more information on each one. Common course configurations, and a bit of text about each one. To help you through your racing. Windward gate courses, and we drop down onto the next button. We get our racing signals, and we've divided these into committee boat signals, preparatory signals, start sequences, recalls, and postponements. And again, if we click on each one, we will have the various signals under that section. Preparatory signals, and so on and so forth. And under the preparatory signals, we've got the P flag, the I flag, Z flag, U flag, and black flag. And whichever one you click on, it will bring up the actual rule and how it is applied at the start. And then we have our start sequence, common sequences, 5-minute signal, 4-minute signal, 1-minute signal, and your start signal, and the various recalls, your individual recall and your general recall, and there's a sound bite as well to indicate what it would sound like, your various postponement signals, again with sound bites, and then your race control quiz, and so on and so forth. And each of these modules follows a similar structure. Some of them do have videos. I think Mark Rounding has some videos, as I remember it, some diagrams. Some of the diagrams are interactive. But it's quite comprehensive, and it certainly will take you to what we in this part of the world term as a Sunday sailor to a more proficient sailor by going through this information and learning and applying it around the race course. Here's one of the videos. I'm not sure if it will play over Zoom, but let's have a look.
There we go.
Hi, my name is Neil Ashton. I'm your racing instructor. And in this video, we're going to cover rounding racing marks. We're going to start off with the rounding of the windward mark.
Thank you, Neil. That's great.
After rounding the leeward.
That's super useful. Rang, is there anything else you'd like to add? Thank you, Neil, for talking us through the rules and for updating on the website.
Absolute pleasure.
Of course. Rang, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think for the course, this makes a good coverage. I think we do have an upcoming course catalog as well, and we have kind of a wide range of courses we're working to establish. Short-handed racing, offshore racing, sort of multiple type of fields within sailing and owning a sailboat. So also happy to hear if you have inputs on or preferences to the topics that we would want to address in our future course catalog. So I think with that, I think we kind of covered the meat.
Neil, can you share the presentation again, please, if that would be okay? That would be great. And just as Rang mentions, if anybody does have any, we will talk in a moment about the future courses, but we'd obviously welcome your thoughts on that. Just by way of kind of continuing the conversation, Sailmaster Academy has a growing presence on social media, so do follow us, particularly on Instagram and on Facebook. We will place a recording of this session on YouTube as well, but we'd love to join the conversation with you there, and to build a community of online sailors, and those that are committed to their continuing development and continuing growth as sailors. Please do subscribe to our newsletter at the website, sailmasteracademy.com, where you'll be able to receive more hints and tips from Neil and our experts on being a better and more confident sailor. And you'll be able to get automatically updated on new course launches and exclusive discounts and offers that we might be running. And I guess our enthusiasm here is about building a community of sailing enthusiasts who are passionate about improving their skills, and also about kind of, and Rang mentioned this at the beginning, about staying on top of their boat maintenance, and that will come through in the courses that we are looking to run moving forward. Neil, if I can ask you to jump onto the next one. So, I mean, we thank you for joining us this afternoon. I mean, the three of you who are with us on our call this afternoon will obviously win access to the Keelboat Racing course that Neil has just described. You registered with your email, so we have that. I will contact you via email tomorrow to give you and to set up access to the course. But we would, I guess, we hope that you will enjoy working through the course. And we would very much like to get your thoughts, your comments, your feedback as you take the course and as you complete the course. So thank you in advance for your help and your support in doing that. We hope that you find the course valuable. And unlike other courses that are out there, this will be permanently available to you. You'll be able to access these resources moving forward. You will get a certificate again, which you can add to a portfolio, and we will, of course, ensure that that if you've got any questions as you work through the course, then Rang, Neil, and I will obviously be available to address those as we go. So I'm delighted to say thank you for the three of you for joining our webinar this afternoon, and I will be in touch, as I say, via email to give you the details of logging in. And we look forward to hearing your feedback as you walk through the course. I'm just noticing a couple of questions just popping up. Neil, I wonder whether I could just ask you, there's a question here from Rutger asking about the different interpretation of the rules. He mentions between a J70 Dragon and a BMI. Oh, sorry, an 8M. I do apologise. My eyesight is failing me. Any thoughts or comments about the interpretation of the rules there? in those different classes?
Yeah, so the interpretation of the rules is a difficult one to answer because they've only been live for, what is it now, 35 days, not even 34 days. And probably very few regattas have happened, so there've been very few case studies. But as more and more regattas take place, case studies will be looked at in detail, and potential changes will be put forth for the next reiteration of the rules. The interpretation is a difficult one in that it is a set of rules. So the rule makers have written them in such a way to make them not be able to be interpreted differently. So I don't believe that classes will be able to interpret them in the way that they wish to interpret them. I think everybody will have to interpret them in the way that they were written.
Thank you. Rutger goes on to comment on the different nature, perhaps, of some of the different classes, but I will leave that out. If anybody sees his point in the chat, then I'm sure they can respond. Neil, what's next? Or as we approach, I think we have a couple of final slides. Rank, do you want to pick up the last two slides talking about the current portfolio and where we might go next?
Yeah, so we kind of covered this verbally earlier as well, but the course is currently live is the Keelboat Racing, which we've been going through today. Marine diesel engine maintenance, as we mentioned, is fully live. And then if we move forward, we have a kind of a portfolio of further courses we're working on, relating both. They kind of fall in two camps, really. One is becoming a better sailor on either the racing course or even for cruising purposes. The other one, maintaining your boat and helping you also kind of cut the bill of maintenance, but also becoming a more secure sailor by ensuring that you're able to do repairs, simple repairs or maintenance out on the water as well. So I'm not sure I'm going to talk through them. I think what we have discussed is that both short-handed sailing and offshore racing are two topics that we've noticed are high on the interest lists. So they might be coming up next, but again, happy to get your feedback also on whether there are priorities from your side that could impact how we progress on this.
And again, thank you. If you want to drop a comment into the chat to let us know, that would be great. Or you have our email and can contact us there as well. Okay. I think that's pretty much it. If there are no further questions, I will just double check the chat. Darlene, thank you very much for your feedback. That's excellent to hear. Rang, I'll leave it with you to say a couple of closing words.
No, thanks for joining. It's good to have the word out and stay in touch and keep close. We're growing this, so we want to stay in touch. So again, thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks a lot. Have a good evening. Good morning.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.